Hello, this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan, Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. I have got a pretty solid podcast for you today, and let's not waste time. Let's get into it. Alright, so for the first time in possibly the entire offseason, the Jets have good news from Aaron Rodgers. He's reporting to training camp. He did say in an interview that he did get fined, and he also said he believes the Jets are in the Super Bowl bubble as one of those 8 to 12 teams that are capable of winning a Super Bowl. And honestly, if I made a list of the 12 or 10 to 12 teams that I thought could make a Super Bowl, I would have the Jets in there. I've been pretty clear. Great roster. It's just they're relying on Rodgers staying healthy, and that's, hate to say it, but it's unlikely. But yeah, in that 10-team bubble there, I got the 5 I already said: Niners, Bengals, Ravens, Lions, Chiefs. That's 5. Then there's the Jets. The Bills are still a very solid team. That's 7. What else we got? Eagles are right there too. The Rams, honestly, not too far off the Super Bowl a few years ago. And I think a dark horse, the 10th team I would put in that could win a Super Bowl, the Texans. Listen, I know C.J. Stroud's only in his second year, but Texans, they surprised everyone, made the second round last year. It's hard for me to say, they're definitely not... they're definitely... I can't write them off completely. And there's also the Dolphins, so that's probably 11 teams right there. But yeah, I mean, all those teams are capable of making a Super Bowl. I think the first 5 I listed are capable of winning it. But yeah, the Jets, they're right there. Rodgers reporting to training camp is a good sign. He seems to be putting in more effort with the Jets than he did with the Packers in those last few years. I'm not saying Rodgers didn't put effort in with the Packers at all. I mean, for years, I think he was one of the harder working quarterbacks in the league, and for a few years I thought he was the best as well. But those last 2-3 years, he was not showing up for the Packers at all. And he seems to be putting in a bit of effort with the Jets, which is a good sign. And he seems like he's back to the same form he was in his last year with the Packers, which is a good thing, right? Yeah, it was his worst year since his rookie year, or his first year starting. But that's not a bad year for a quarterback at all. He still had close to 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, would have been, I think, maybe top 10 in the league last year. And a 92 quarterback rating, and those are pretty solid stats. Not by Aaron Rodgers standard, but he's going to give the Jets something they haven't had ever at the quarterback position. In many ways, the Jets are like the Bears, except the Jets at least had Joe Namath at some point. They have a quarterback that made a name for himself. The Bears, I can't name a single quarterback for them. So yeah, the Jets, things are looking up. Listen, I would say their ceiling, if I were to do a ceiling and floor for the Jets, there would be a huge difference, because it all depends if Rodgers stays healthy. Their ceiling, 10 wins. And potentially going to the AFC Championship. That's their ceiling. Their floor, I would say 6 wins. 6-11, third in the division, out of the playoffs. And a similar thing goes for the Bears, where the Bears, I think the Jets are better roster by far. I think they have a better receiving core, a better defense, better running back. But the Bears, they're in a similar boat. If Caleb Williams is legit, they're probably a 9-win team. If he's not, they're probably a 4 or 5-win team. So that's going to be an interesting one. And another interesting team this season is the Chargers as well. Because with Jim Harbaugh, I think that's by far the best coach Herbert has had. Brandon Staley, Anthony Lynn. None of them come close to the offensive mind of Jim Harbaugh. So, and let's not forget, he made a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick at his quarterback and damn near won, right? So he's not by any means a bad coach. I think he's going to work very well with Justin Herbert. And I think at the end of the year, we are all going to be saying that Justin Herbert is a top 3 quarterback in football. No questions. I think most people will start to see him as ahead of Joe Burrow. Because I think everyone knows the top 5. In no order, the top 5 it's Allen, it's obviously Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, and Herbert. I think that's a clear top 5. I would say 1 is Mahomes and 2 is Josh Allen. And right now 3 is Lamar, 4 Burrow, 5 Herbert. By the end of this year, I think we're going to see Herbert on a different level. All right. Let's move on to another quarterback, Matt Stafford, reported to camp after an adjustment with his contract. Sean McVay did not go into detail about what the adjustments in the contract is, but listen, I think the Rams, they are not a team to sleep on by any means. I think people have quickly forgotten that not too long ago they made the Super Bowl, had a bad Super Bowl hangover, and then last year it seemed like they kind of returned to form a little bit. Their biggest problem isn't their roster talent. It certainly isn't their coaching. I think Sean McVay is a top 3 coach in the league. Their problem is they're in the same division as the Niners. So they're likely, and their roster is good, it's not the Niners. But I think McVay and Shanahan are on the similar level, but it comes down to the roster. The Niners, they have, I think, the best roster in football. And that's 2 games for the Rams. I think they can split it. I think if they split the season series, they're in a good spot, but I don't see any world where they sweep the Niners. And I don't see any world where they win a division. Unless an injury happens to McCaffrey. Or Purdy, for that matter, because people kind of... I agree that Purdy would not be the same on another team. But it's like I said about Tua. I don't think Tua would be fantastic if he was on the Jaguars, But it's about the quarterback that works for the team. Sorry, I'm mixing up my quarterbacks right now. If Purdy goes down, the Niners aren't the same football team. Because Purdy is the quarterback that works for that system. So the only world where I see the Rams taking over is if CMC, their best player, or Purdy, the quarterback of that team, gets injured. Otherwise it's the Rams are fighting for a wild card spot. And they're going to have to take a tougher road to the Super Bowl. But with Stafford healthy, I think their team is very well put together. Kyren Williams is promising young running back. They got Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, solid O-line, great coach. There's no reason to sleep on them. All right. Here's another team that's been pretty slept on for reasons, valid reasons. The Broncos. So Sean Payton said that he hasn't made a complete quarterback decision yet, saying they'll mix it up at quarterback for training camp. Listen, I wouldn't say they have... I think Bo Nix should be their number one option. If I were them, I would just start from... I just don't see any point... Like with... I understand the whole letting a quarterback sit and learn. But, like, who is Bo Nix learning from? Zach Wilson? A guy who literally failed as a starting quarterback and is now fighting for a starting position with a rookie? Or Jarrett Stidham, who's been a career backup? Like, Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith, who, say what you will, Alex Smith was a very respectable quarterback. Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers. At minimum, Aaron Rodgers is a top 12 quarterback to ever play. Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre. So these guys that sat behind quarterbacks and learned from them, they learned from quarterbacks that had success in the league. Not Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson. You know, so... I feel like it should be a no-brainer for Bo Nix, but I trust Sean Payton. I mean, Sean Payton, I think people have forgotten what a great coach he is. That roster should not have went 8-9 last year. That team they had last year, that was not an 8-9 team. Sean Payton did a great job at maximizing their potential, believe me. And also, don't forget, the Saints were 3-13 the year before they got Sean Payton. And he made them a Super Bowl team in less than 5 years. So Sean Payton is a better coach than people are remembering. And I think they have some players. I think Javonte Williams is a nice running back. Courtland Sutton isn't exactly a stud. But I'd say he's probably a top 12 receiver in the league right now. Denzel Mims is a solid number 2. Obviously, Patrick Surtain is a great cornerback. They have a pretty good O-line. Not the best, but... The Broncos roster did make an improvement. I think getting rid of Jerry Jeudy was good. But yeah. I think if they start Bo Nix, they're looking at third in the division. Right? Like, we can't expect much from them because they got a rookie quarterback. I like Courtland Sutton, but he's not a fantastic receiver. They don't have a pure number 1 guy. And as I just said, Javonte Williams is a nice running back, but he's not... You know, the Chargers are probably going to be a better team because they have an elite quarterback, not a rookie one. You know, and they have some offensive weapons. And obviously the Chiefs, they're going to be the top of that division again. But the Raiders, that's a team that I think is in a worse position than the Broncos. The Broncos are rated the worst worst roster in the league. I think that's a bit of a stretch. They have some... I think the Panthers are a worse roster than the Broncos, but... That's just me. Yeah, but I trust Sean Payton with whatever he does at quarterback. I think he knows what he's doing. Alright, so Garrett Wilson says... He made a comment about receivers getting these major contracts. He said that's something he has to make happen. And I'm confident he will. The Jets, he has been... I'm pretty sure... I don't have the stats in front of me, but pretty confident his stats are more impressive than all the rest of the Jets receivers combined. But yeah, Garrett Wilson, I feel like you have to pay people based on how much they do for your team. Garrett Wilson is going to be, in the coming years, even after Rodgers retires, he's going to be one of the three main pieces of that team. This year, I think the three main pieces, Breece Hall, Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson. Pretty simple. And when Rodgers leaves and retires, whenever he does that, I don't know when he will, but sorry. Whenever he retires, Garrett Wilson is going to probably be, at that point, a top 7 receiver in the league. I think he's top 8 right now. There's only 7 guys I would take in front of Garrett Wilson. That's the obvious top 5. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill. This is in no order. CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Adams. Those are the top 5, easy. And then I would say Amon-Ra St. Brown is ahead of Wilson right now. And Mike Evans. But after that, I think Garrett Wilson is number 8. And, he'll get a big contract. Given what he means to the Jets and how he's been playing so early in his career. All right, so Kyle Shanahan was on a podcast recently and said, he offered Bill Belichick a position on the Niners coaching staff, but Belichick declined. And Belichick, he's probably done. I mean, how old is he? He's in his late 70s at a minimum. And that's a point I'm going to make. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Cowboys again. I'm going to talk about Jerry Jones' age later in the show. Belichick is 72. He has spent... he's been coaching since, if you're counting his days as a defensive coordinator of the Giants, even further back than that. The Giants wasn't his first coaching gig, it was just his first bit, his big break, if you will. Coaching the Giants, or the defensive coordinator of the Giants. Coached them to a Super Bowl. Yeah, so it's more than 30 years of coaching. I think he's stepping away from football right now, and it's not a bad thing. Listen, he's a smart guy. He is the best coach of all time, easily the most decorated. The Patriots crashed and burned after Tom Brady left. And I don't think that's because... It's not all on Belichick. Part of it is because they didn't draft well. They didn't make good moves in free agency. But, it's pretty evident he crashed after Brady left. And I don't think it's all on him because... In all honesty, he coached with Brady for 20 years. To go from the greatest, most disciplined quarterback ever to Mac Jones has to be a crazy shock. Right, so I'm got it in front of me. Belichick has been a head coach for 29 years. 24 with the Patriots, 5 with Cleveland. So, all right. Yeah, his first job in the NFL was in 1975 with the Baltimore Colts. That's how old he was. They were the Baltimore Colts when he started as a special assistant. Then he was with the Lions, then the Broncos, then his first long-time gig was with the Giants from 79 to 1990. Coached the Browns, did okay there. But yeah, he's the best head coach ever. I think the greatest defensive mind in all of football. But yeah, his offensive was never great. He never drafted too well. But yeah, he had a very successful career. I don't think he needs to be getting involved, even with the Niners, who are in a great position right now. Don't think he needs to be getting involved in that either. All right, let's shift to basketball. So Paul George talked about the Clippers kind of playing second fiddle to the Lakers, even when people thought they would be better after the Kawhi Paul George move. Admittedly, I thought the same thing after, because, listen, the year that Kawhi and Paul George joined the Clippers, and LeBron and AD were on the Lakers, I thought that the Lakers would be better for a few years, but then after like 2-3 years of the Lakers being the best team in LA, it would be taken over. And I was right for a while. I was pretty on point about that. But here's the thing. Paul George said that the Clippers felt like the B team in LA. Now, he's from Fresno State. Obviously, going home was a big story for him. And Kawhi. Lakers fans were outraged when he chose the Clippers over the Lakers. But here's the thing. Paul George is one of the best players of this decade. From a statistical standpoint, he's one of the best players of this decade. As is Kawhi. Now, the Clippers, they have always been the smaller brand. And it's not like they haven't had big names. They had Lob City, CP3, and Blake Griffin. They made the playoffs constantly, but kept losing. Then, entered a new era, Kawhi and Paul George. It looked like everything was going to turn around. They never made it past the second round. Paul George, I think, was pretty successful with them, except for that whole playoff P embarrassment. The main disappointment, I think, is Kawhi. He constantly misses games, constantly has time off, and even though they didn't get these players at their best, they had Westbrook, he's a big name. James Harden's a big name. Even when players aren't at their best, their names kind of bring in fans, right? I would say LeBron peaked in probably 2018 with the Cavs. But when LeBron signed with the Lakers, it was the most popular Lakers had been since Kobe retired. Because LeBron's name carried it. It brought more people to Los Angeles to root for Los Angeles, not to you know what I mean. But the Lakers, I think the main reason that the Clippers are always second fiddle to them is the Lakers just have a much richer history. They have 17 total titles, second to the Celtics. Even in the last decade, the Clippers, you can argue they've been more successful, won more games, but in the last decade, the Lakers, they've had Kobe, who is one of the most polarizing players in the history of basketball, then LeBron, then AD. And the fact remains, even if the Clippers have been more consistent, the Lakers are the ones that have won a title in the past 10 years. And with the Lakers, even with their lack of success since 2020, LeBron and AD, in spite of a few minor injuries here and there, they show up almost every night. Kawhi, can't say the same thing. So once Kawhi isn't playing, it's like, oh, let's go to the Clipper game. Let's watch an old Westbrook and an old-ass James Harden. Not as fun, So I think because of the history of the Lakers and the fact that they just have a way of bringing in bigger names, they're going to be the A team in LA for a while. Because even with PG, who, like I said, one of the best players of this decade, they're still not as polarizing as the Lakers are. Alright, so Tyreek Hill had some high praise for Tua, saying he believes Tua will attend practice in spite of not having a contract and he won't hold out. Now, as I said earlier, Tua, I think he's in many ways similar to Brock Purdy. I think he's better. But, like, seriously, put him on the Jags. Would he really be better than Trevor Lawrence? I don't know if he would. Right, and I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence is fantastic. But, like, I think he's better than Tua. Call me crazy. You know, and Tua, he was not nearly as successful with Brian Flores, who was a pretty successful coach. That's why I've stressed, like, the fit factor in, like, with Tua and just earlier Purdy. You know, like, Flores was a good coach, but he didn't fit well with Tua. McDaniel and Tua are a perfect fit. And they work perfectly together. You know, and I think, you know, Mike McDaniel runs his offense very similar to Shanahan, if you notice. And that's why Tua and Brock Purdy, who are otherwise above average quarterbacks, are putting up elite numbers. You know, so that's why I'm stressing, like, yeah, Tua, he deserves to be paid because he works for them. Just don't pay him the max, because I think max contracts should only go to quarterbacks who are in the situation where the team needs the quarterback more than the quarterback needs the team. I think Tua and Brock Purdy need the Niners and Dolphins a lot more than the Dolphins and Niners need them. Patrick Mahomes, on the other hand, the Chiefs need him. The Ravens need Lamar. The Bengals need Burrow. And the Chargers sure as hell need Herbert. And the Bills need Allen. So those are the guys that I would pay the max. But, and it's not an insult to Tua or Purdy. I think they're above average. I think they're good NFL quarterbacks. It's just, put them on a bad team. They're not doing the same thing. They're not going to look the same. Alright. Speaking of contract drama, Jordan Love, the contract isn't done yet, but like I said, both parties seem interested in getting one completed. And listen, Jordan Love, I haven't seen enough on him to know if the Packers need him or if he needs the Packers. And I am a little apprehensive about them signing Jordan Love this early because, listen, I'm optimistic about him too, but the reality is he's played one full season and only half of it was good. The other half was tragic. All right? The first half of that season, I shouldn't be too overdramatic. I've seen worse quarterback play. But that doesn't change the fact that the first half of Jordan Love's first season with the Packers was far from excellent. The last half was great. Don't get me wrong. He looked like a top 10 quarterback in the league the last half of the season. But that's not enough for me to say he deserves a contract. So, they can pay him, but be cautious. Alright, I am going to talk about the Cowboys again. I know you're probably getting tired of it because I talk about them every podcast, but listen. I'm going to do something a little bit different. a lot of my takes are manipulated by stats. So what I've told you about the Cowboys is they're a great regular season team. They're not the worst. I don't think they're a bad team at all. I think they're almost always a playoff lock. But they don't perform well in the playoffs. So, here are some stats on them, right? The last 8 years, 4 division titles, 5 playoff appearances. All right? That's 8 years of solid football play. All right? And they've had solid players. Dak Prescott, he had one of the best rookie seasons that I've seen, at least. Him and Ezekiel Elliott, they got the 1 seed in the NFC their first year. Now, Elliott took a big fall. I don't know what happened there. But you got like 3 good years out of him. You've gotten years of good play out of Prescott. Now you have CeeDee Lamb, a top 5 receiver. And you may not think this, but I actually do kind of have a soft spot for CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott because they won my fantasy league last year. But yeah. In spite of all the success, the fact remains, in the last 3 years, there's 1 playoff win. They've had very minimal playoff success to back up the talk that 81-year-old Jerry Jones has. And I know Jerry Jones acts like the GM. I think Jerry Jones has to just part ways with the Cowboys, honestly. He has had great success, right? So I only went back 8 years. 4 division titles, 5 playoff appearances. If you go back to when Jerry Jones started here, listen. They have had tremendous success over his 35 years here? Listen. He got 2 Super Bowls with Jimmy Johnson. Had this weird rift or whatever the hell, and that doesn't concern me. Then they won another one, so that's 3. 3 Super Bowls is better than most GMs in the league do. And yeah, he hasn't won one since 96. He still won one, right? I mean, how many Lions owners have a Super Bowl? Or Jets, or Texans? You know, even the Packers, they never had an owner. So they don't have anyone. And, like, I don't know, Jerry Jones, I think he's doing more harm than good by staying in the league. I think he's ruining the legacy he's built. The more and more he stays here. I mean, he's a billionaire, a 3-time Super Bowl champion, gonna be a Hall of Famer. So I don't know what more he's looking for, but I think this offseason has officially convinced me that they have lost their way. Jerry Jones came out saying, oh, we're going swinging. We're getting all these free agents. Nothing. Now you have these contract negotiations. They're going to overpay Dak. I already know it. And he's going to screw up the CeeDee Lamb deal. And it's not going to help him at all. Also doesn't help that they have a tough schedule next year. So all this offseason drama, and then they're going to have to face a number of difficulties during the season. All right, so aren't familiar with their schedule, they open up with the Browns. They should win that game. Saints probably got that game. Then the Ravens. Get a break in the schedule with the Giants. The Steelers are an interesting team. Then they get the Lions and then the Niners. Then the Falcons, who can be a scary team. The Eagles, Texans. They get a break after the Texans. Commanders and Giants, so they get a bit of a break there. Then the Bengals. Break with the Panthers. Then the Bucs. Then the Eagles again. So I could say right now that the Cowboys. Here's what I'll say. They split the series with the Eagles, so that's one loss. I can confidently say they lose to the Bengals. I'm also going to confidently say they lose to the Bucs as well. And the Texans. And the Niners. And the Lions. And the Ravens. So that's 7 losses out of the gate. They fall to 10-7. And that's assuming they get their crap together. I think even if they fix the CeeDee Lamb situation, they're still a worse team than all those teams that I just said would beat them. So, I don't know how it's going to work. Unlike Sean Payton, I don't know if I trust Jerry Jones with this. So, we'll see how it goes. Alright, so the Jets apparently offered Hassan Reddick a new contract before the trade, but he declined. What do I make of that? I had no idea. I just wanted a reason to stress my off-season noise. My point that off-season noise could have an effect on a team's performance. And I'm not rooting against the Jets or the Cowboys, despite what you guys may think. Honestly, the more teams that are competitive, the more exciting it is to watch football. I'm not an NFL owner or player or coach, so I don't care how successful each team is. It doesn't matter to me. All I'm doing is giving my opinion on how I think they're doing. The Jets, great roster. Management, questionable. The problem I have with that is I feel like I've been saying that for the last 3 years. Why only the last 3 years? Because I just started this podcast 3 years ago. So, for the past 3 years, it's been true that the Jets have a good roster. It's their management that hinders them. Similar deal with the Cowboys. They have talent. They have talent on their roster. They're just poorly managed. So, I mean, I don't know if this thing is going to blow over with Hassan Reddick, but I hope it does. And I hope the Jets have a great season, because honestly, Jets fans have earned it, the way I see it. But I can't guarantee it's going to be what you guys are all hoping for. Alright, so Dan Quinn says that apparently he's not completely sold on this quarterback yet either. Saying that he'll know when Jayden Daniels is ready to start. Jayden Daniels is actually the quarterback I'm most interested in heading into the season. Because he reminds me a lot of Lamar, and we know how successful Lamar has been. Unfortunately, he's not inheriting the same thing that Lamar did, so it's gonna take a little longer for him to show his ceiling and what a great quarterback he is. But I think that Washington has upgraded. You know, I think a lot of people are getting hung up on the fact that it's so much. They got a new coach, new offensive coordinator, new running back, new quarterback. Change can be a good thing. Right? Especially with the Commanders, who have been awful the past few years. So, the way I see it, it's all positive change. I think they upgraded that coach, upgraded that offensive coordinator, upgraded that quarterback, definitely upgraded that running back. So, nothing to freak out about the way I see it. All right. So, the point I made about USC yesterday, right? They not only have Lincoln Riley, who does a great job at changing culture and turning teams around, they don't have a tough schedule. They faced Notre Dame and Penn State, who are tough teams, but they face them at home. They get home field advantage. They don't play Ohio State. Damn. They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Oregon. Michigan is good, but the point is, overall, this schedule, it's not incredibly difficult. I can see USC being one of the top teams in college football. And I don't think that's crazy. Given their schedule, like a similar thing with the Jaguars last year, they're not as good as their record shows, but their schedule last year was easy. And the same thing is going to happen with, I think, the Falcons this year. You know? I think USC has talent. They got Lincoln Riley, a great coach, and an easy schedule. So, I think things are looking up over there, even without Caleb Williams. All right, so Stephon Diggs gave some praise to C.J. Stroud, saying that he is special. Everyone knows it. Yeah, everyone does know it. It's kind of obvious. We all saw it last year. And the reason I know a lot of people like to say, oh, it's 1 year. Yes, it was 1 year. You're right. But the thing is, it reminded me a lot of Justin Herbert. Immediate success. Everyone immediately saw greatness from C.J. Stroud. The same way everyone saw immediate success from Herbert. You know? And a few years later, we're still all saying the same thing about Herbert. Great player on a bad team. I don't think the same can be said about C.J. Stroud. Right? He now has Tank Dell, promising receiver, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs is obviously the big name. And added Joe Mixon to the run game. So C.J. Stroud, I think, is going to show a lot of people this year that rookie year was no fluke at all. All right. So the Panthers GM, Dan Morgan, said that Bryce Young is committed to be great. Okay. I don't disagree. It's just Panthers offense is god-awful. But I guess the main problem with that is, well, unlike Justin Herbert, who came into the league with a similar garbage roster, I didn't see spark from Bryce Young last year. You know, with Herbert, everyone saw it. Everyone saw immediately what a great quarterback he was, even though he had no one to throw the ball to. But listen, I think they'll improve. I think Young is going to be better, and I think their roster is better this year compared to last year. Dan Morgan, by the way, he retired in 2007. He's really young for a GM, but listen, McVay was 30. Shanahan's young for a coach too, so youth is not always a liability. Alright. The final segment of the day. T. Higgins got the franchise tag, and he did say that this could be his last year with Cincinnati. Listen, I think they're a Super Bowl team. My only worry is this might kind of be the last year, because I don't think their roster is improving. They lost Joe Mixon, so they didn't upgrade at running back. And they lost Tyler Boyd, who isn't crazy involved in the team, but what I'm saying is their depth is kind of decreasing. So, I think this year we'll see the same Bengals we saw a few years ago that went to the Super Bowl. However, after that, if they lose T. Higgins, there is a little bit of concern with me. Alright, so I won't be able to do a podcast tomorrow, but we'll be back Friday, and yeah, that's all I gotta say. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan. Have a good day. I will see you Friday.